Climbing in Valorant at times can feel absolutely impossible. Like a hamster wheel, you feel like you're running in circles and your rank reflects that never changing. But in this video, we're going to go over 7 tips to help you instantly climb in rank so you can get to Ascendant, Immortal, or even Radiant. Now, the first problem is a problem you might not even know you have, and it's one of the biggest reasons people stop being able to climb, and it's having a super huge inconsistency in your map win rate. A lot of the times, players will have maps that they win on a fraction of the percentage compared to many of the other maps, and you might not even realize it yourself, but it's often reflected in how much you enjoy a map or not, because people inherently like winning more. Now, whether you're playing certain characters you're not used to playing on these maps, whether you're setting up in poor positions, or you're just fundamentally approaching the map in the wrong way, these are big stains on your overall win rate. And the problem is, if you consistently lose on these maps over and over again, then you could be a really great player on these other maps and dominate, but you're basically gonna have an even win rate, maybe even a negative one, because you're not fixing your fundamental flaws. Now, there's a really simple solution. Number one, I want you to start marking down your map wins and losses. Take note of the maps you win on, the maps you lose on. After you grind for a week or 2 weeks, you'll have a really good idea of what your win rate is on certain maps. And the maps that you see that you're really only winning like 2 out of 7, 2 out of 10, you're like, okay, I need to take a closer look. And in those games, I want you to notice if there's anything big that you're doing differently. Are you playing characters? Perhaps characters that you're not really comfortable in, but you think it's best for the map, even though you really haven't properly learned these characters, and because you play those characters only on those maps, you're not getting enough exposure to those agents in order to get good with them. Or perhaps your position is constantly changing, and this is another tip that I'll give you. Play similar positions on these maps over and over again, especially a map you're struggling with, especially a map you don't like. Don't always be mixing up where you're positioning, especially on defense. Don't go here and there and B and A and C and move all around. Pick a spot, pick an area, pick a place on the map that you will claim. You know every in and out, every wall bang, how people approach it. You get the repetitions in so that you become very, very comfortable and confident, at the very least, on that place on the map. And then you can branch out from there, but let's nail down things in small chunks first, instead of just trying to constantly take in everything and then really just kind of block everything out and not learn anything every single time we run into these maps that we don't like, even though we don't like them because we're losing on them. Now, before we get into the next tip, let me tell you a little bit more about one of the easiest agents to rank up with in the current meta. Reyna is absolutely disgusting if you know how to play her, and that's why we've gone ahead and made the perfect course that you can literally master Reyna in minutes. Our goal was to teach players as fast as possible what they need to know about Reyna to start carrying their matches. Most players probably pick up Reyna and immediately find it difficult to have an impact if they can't aim. Well, with our course, we simplify the aiming process for you so you could skip the part where you look like this and get to the part where you look like this. Don't just take our word for it though. We offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, so if you don't climb, you don't pay. Check it out using the link in the description below, but let's get into tip 3. Now, the next big tip is to put your ego aside and use your brain, not your freaking aim. One of the things about mechanical skill in Valorant, or pretty much any FPS, is that it's a constant improvement, right? Your aim is something that's going to gradually get better over time. It's not going to magically get insane overnight. And what this means is, while aim is something that you're always trying to strive for improvement on, it is not the reason that you're stuck in the rank you're at, because you could be a much higher rank with your same aim, even worse aim. There are players that are far higher ranked than you with worse aim than you have right now. So you don't want to end up like someone that is all aim, no brain. You want to be someone that understands how to take the smart engagements. And the ultimate goal here is to make the win as easy as possible. You're not ego challenging people, peaking in a 1v1 when you could do a 2v1, trying to go and chase people down when you could easily just play the bomb and guarantee the victory. Win the easiest way possible. And I'm not saying that there won't be moments where you have to clutch up, where you have to aim really well, we have to pop off, become a mechanical demon, win a 1v1. Those moments are gonna happen 100%, but don't make those moments happen more than they need to, because oftentimes you're egoing your mechanical skill, when really there's always a bigger fish, a better aimer, and sometimes people just get better luck in an aim duel. And even if you're a better aimer, like, I don't want to make my win or loss of a round come down to like a 60-40%, when instead I could have it be like a 99-1% or 100% without even a possibility of losing. Yes, you could just try to ego every single person in your game and then be like, oh, I'm better, I'm winning all these gun duels. Or you can just be better and be a higher rank than the people that are in your lobby instead, and play the smart way instead of just always trying to out ego people or out aim people. The way that I like to think about it is, would your play work even if your opponent was better than you mechanically? Like, if you were literally doing that play up against like a freaking god aimer, would the play still freaking work? And if the answer is no, then most of the time you're just abusing the skill level of the people in your rank, but you're gonna hit a wall way quicker than people that are learning the game properly, trying to come up with the smartest ways to take every engagement. Now, the next tip that we got for you in this video is to master the freaking clock. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see most players make, is that they don't use the time to their full advantage. If you're ever in a situation where you have time to spend, you should oftentimes use that time to give you a fundamental advantage. And one of the best examples of this is, let's say you get onto a site, you're last alive with the spike, and you don't know where the enemy team is, right? You have like a minute left, maybe 40 seconds left. You don't know, and there's 2 enemies alive. You have no idea where they are. Now, you could run straight to the plant zone and get it down because maybe you're worried about them rotating, or you're worried about getting snuck up on, or whatever the case may be. Or what you could do is, because you realize that you're at a disadvantage, why not clear as many angles or spaces on the map as possible to try to isolate a 1v1. If you can successfully do so and get that spike down, now you actually are going to be in an advantage fight instead of just blindly planting and then you have no idea where the enemies are. You didn't gather any space, you didn't get any information, you didn't isolate any 1v1s, and yes, you're under a certain amount of pressure to get that spike down, but that's why you need to learn to master the clock. Find ways to get value out of every single second you have. And this also means understanding that you need to play a certain way in order to win. Like, there's way too many players that the way to actually win is to stick it to the half. The way to actually win is to apply spike, defuse pressure right away. But if you try to do this thing where you're like going in to try to win, but then you don't actually play in a way that gives you a chance of winning, then you should have just saved completely. So most of the time people are letting the pressure get the best of them, and realize that at the end of the day, the time that you have, the clock ticking down, that's like the #1 rule and thing that you have to follow that like supersedes everything else. Even if you're under pressure, even if you're at risk of dying, you need to keep reminding yourself that this is what you have to do in order to win, and this is the time that's allotted for you to make a play, defuse the objective, plant the spike, whatever the case may be. Now, another big mistake that a lot of players are making is just giving up information for free. And a lot of times people think that they can give up information in certain places, but once they get close to wherever they're gonna push, they start walking, right? You see this all the time where people will run really far, they'll go really fast, they'll just give up all this information for free, and you might be thinking, I'm not giving up any information because I am wrapping where enemies are not near. But what players often fail to understand is that enemies will be pushed up and playing in areas and corners and positions on the map that give them more offensive information than they imagine. You need to not only expect them to be in places that you know they are, but also if you don't have confirmation that they're not in a close-up area where they could potentially be listening to you rotate and things like that, then you should assume that they could have that information, especially if they've done it before. And this often happens where people will like fast rotate and they think they're good to get the spike down, and then there's like 3 people there and they're like, what the heck, they're stacking the site? Well, you gave away all this information to someone that was already lurked up, already got that information. They're waiting, they're lurking up, they're waiting for you to like jump out a window or something, but then they hear you run away and they're just like telling their friends, he's rotating, and then they all cut you off and you're just dead for free. And sometimes you're kind of playing the odds because you don't always want to play around around hypothetically an enemy gathering information, because if you do this too much when there's a cost, like if there's very, very little time for you to plant or something, you can't afford to take your time. You can't afford to cut extra noise or deny more information, because then you'll have less time to clear a site, less time to plant, and you could get interrupted way too easily. So do it based on what you can afford. This kind of ties into the master the clock. Understand that if you have more time to give, then you can give away less things. Don't give away information or value for free if you can afford to not do so. And the next big tip that I got for you is a simple one, but it's such an important one, and it's just to try to play when you're hard grinding at 100%. And what I mean here is there's way too many of y'all, and you know who you are, that are grinding when you're tired, when you're really, really uncomfortable, when you're worried about something else going on in your life, where you can't even focus. There's so many situations where it's like that, and you're not playing at your best. You know you're not playing at your best, but the problem is this becomes a habit where every single time you're grinding Valorant, you're playing at a suboptimal state, where you're just not bringing out your 100%. And the problem here is that what would be a 65, 70% win rate that is pushing you across to the next rank and the rank after that is becoming a 50% win rate, a 45% win rate. And then you start doubting yourself and your skill, and you get competitive anxiety, and it worsens your play. And it's like just a cycle over and over again, where really you're a much better player than you think. You're just not really playing at your optimal state. I would say just really get in tune with when you're playing well and when you're not, and understand the things that make it so you don't play well. Whether you didn't get a good night's sleep, whether you're sitting awkwardly in your chair, whether something else is going on. If there are things that are contributing to you having a bad session, cut that session a little bit short. Take a break. Realize that you don't have to just consistently grind mindlessly at this game nonstop, especially if you're not feeling it, especially if you're not 100%. Take care of yourself, and you'll have better play sessions as well. And even in less time played overall, you'll have better sessions, better improvement, better climbing than if you were just to power out so many suboptimal sessions where you're not learning anything, you're not having good games, you're not winning, and you're just having a shit time overall, but you're grinding anyways. Now, the next tip I have for you is to not copycat watch streamers. And I'm not saying to just not watch streamers in general, because watching streamers is great. I highly suggest it. I do it myself. But don't try to copy what every single streamer is. And you see this way too often, where players will find a pro they really like and just try to copy every single thing they do. But there's a couple of problems with this. Number one, a lot of players play for content. Like, they don't even care. They're just trying to pop off, or they don't even care and they're just going through the motions. Number two, their mechanics are insane. A lot of them get away with what they do because of how good their mechanics are. But if you try to replicate it, you're not going to be able to, because they understand exactly what they can get away with that a lot of people cannot. And yes, there's a tons of things that you can learn from streamers, like how they're using their utility, where they play and position, and what they do in the mid-round decision making. But I need you to filter that through a lens of your objective skill level, your objective rank, how the enemies and their team are playing, because you're not going to have any of the pieces, the teamwork, the coordination, the reliability of your teammates, the pressure of the enemy team and how good they are. There's so many things that are going to be different that you can't just translate one for one, or you're setting yourself up for failure. And most important tip that I'll give you, if you want to climb in ranked right now, it's to take responsibility for your losses. And this is going to be a bit of a hard truth, but hear me out for a second. You have to stop blaming your team for you losing games. You have to stop blaming the opponent's smurfs for you losing games. You have to stop blaming the map pool. You got to stop blaming latency. You got to stop blaming anything. You can't blame anything besides yourself. The only way to truly improve and climb is to take ultimate responsibility for every single freaking loss. Now, the reality of this is, it might actually not be your fault. You might have like those 0 and 15 jets. You might have those crazy inters. You might be up against 10s on a goddamn smurf. I don't know what's happening in your games, but what I will say is you have to cut all that out. I want you to go through every single mental gymnastics possible to cut out all the reasons why you couldn't carry and only keep the reasons why you could. And I'm not saying to be overly hard on yourself and beat yourself up and make yourself feel bad or anything like that. But what I am saying is look at every game as an opportunity for you to learn and do better, because there's always more you can do. And this is also just as true in real life as it is in a game, where yeah, sometimes you get really freaking unlucky and life just smacks you in the freaking face. But take it as a learning opportunity. Try to do something better the next time. And at the end of the day, we can all pray for better teammates. We can all pray for RNG. We can all hope and wish that we could climb just doing what we already have done, because it should be enough, but it's not. And we got to do more. We have to always improve. We have to always better ourselves. And in the pursuit of trying to do more, be better, be a better version of ourselves, and actually take the responsibility for every single loss that we're having, we will become way better than we ever thought possible.